Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. I'm Dad, this is my den. Today, I want to celebrate one of the great treasures, the television of the 1970s and 1980s. I'm talking about The Detective Show. Now, don't get me wrong here, I'm not talking about mysteries. I'm not necessarily talking about police procedurals. I'm talking about detective shows. Virile, rugged, manly detective shows. Masculine fantasies that were not just for men, but were also extremely popular with women. And I'm making a plea to bring these things back because they had some real value to them. But at first, I want to talk a little bit about the elements of this kind of show. What makes these kind of shows? What do you need to make one of these shows? Because what I'd love to see, rather than another remake, another reboot, another reimagining. Can we stop for a minute? You can't reimagine something. You can only imagine something once. Reimagining? Come on. Call it what it is. It's a ripoff. You're ripping off somebody else's idea and pretending it's your own. No more of that. I want to see modern, new detective shows. And you see, most of these shows, they did have a formula. And they were popular because of the formula, not in spite of it. So what do we need? What do we need for our formula? Number one, location, location, location. You got to have not necessarily an exotic location, although that can be good, but you got to have something, an interesting location, and you got to really use it. The location either needs to sort of flow with the identity of the detective, or at times can even be counter to his identity. It heightens his identity by the differences. In the old days, you had Dan Tana in Vegas. You had Thomas Magnum in Hawaii. You had Spencer for Hire in Boston. You had Miami Vice in, God, where was Miami? Just forget that one. No, but you had these locations, and they number one, like I said, they helped kind of define the character. I mean, in the case of like McCloud, you got the cowboy out of water in New York. You see, the New York setting helped heighten McCloud's sort of Western vibe. With Thomas Magnum, you had a character who just flowed in perfectly with Hawaii. He was kind of laid back. He was trying maybe to escape his past a little bit. Spencer had there was this erudite, academic side to him, as well as being an ex-boxer. And Boston kind of brought that out, right? Boston, you have that Ivy League thing, but you also got, some pretty rough neighborhoods. It's that sort of, the effete kind of Yankee. You got the streetwise Irishman kind of thing going in Boston, and that comes together in Spencer. But the other great thing about these locations is, if you're really going to use them to the hilt, you got to go on location to film them. And that puts these fantasies, which they are fantasies, into a real location. It helps ground them somewhat. And maybe one of the best examples is the Rockford Files. Los Angeles. You got this detective living on the beach in Malibu, but he's living in a trailer. And you get that gritty side of Los Angeles, but you see the good side too through the eyes of this kind of blue collar working class detective. It helps define him, but it also, those location shots are so great. And the side benefit of these location shots is they become a time capsule. I look at old episodes of the Rockford Files. I look at old episodes of Vegas, especially Vegas, and I'm seeing the town that I live in as it was when I first got here back in the 70s. And that's pretty cool. You see how things have changed. It brings up memories. So location. If you're going to have a cool detective, you got to anchor it in a real place, and you got to use that real place to the hilt. Let it color the sort of crimes that he's trying to fight, the mysteries he's trying to solve. If you're in Vegas, you're going to have the casinos, you're going to have the mob, you're going to have maybe the desert getting involved. You're going, you get the idea. Number 2 is the car. The great detectives of the 70s and 80s have a cool car. Not just a cool car, a beautiful car. Magnum's Ferrari. Rockford's was Firebird, right? Spencer for Hire, he has the classic Mustang. It's, again, this is a male fantasy, and we love our cars. They're objects not only of art, beauty, but of engineering. See, these are the sides of the male mind that need to come together. We can't just be rational creatures with this love for activity and action. We need to also tap into the artistic, spiritual side, the love of beauty. And these cars, they combine these two things. And again, they can really help sort of define the person by the car they're driving. Again, I love to use sort of the counterexample to all this. Jim Rockford, he has the cool car, but what I love about Rockford is the damn thing's in the shop a lot of times. You see, Rockford is like this interesting contradiction. It takes the formula, doesn't completely subvert it, but it twists it. It plays with it a little bit, right? He's the guy that, punches and then goes, jeez, that hurts. He's the guy with his cool car in the shop, so he's driving his dad's truck. He lives in Malibu, but he lives in a trailer, Great character. But all these elements help to define who he is, to get down to the core of Jim Rockford. And of course, that brings us to, obviously, the final element that you need for these shows, and that is the hero. That is the hero. You need the Jim Rockford. You need the Thomas Magnum. The list goes on. Kojak. Crockett and Tubbs. They can't be purely physical specimens. You almost get something like that with, say, a Mike Hammer character, right? There's a brutality to it. And granted, these are characters, they're very masculine. They fight. They have the guns. They have the car chases. But they're not only that. They have that mental aspect. They're smart. They can solve these problems. They're not emotionally cold, although they oftentimes have to turn those emotions off so they can get to the truth of the matter. And these are great lessons to learn. Again, they're fantasy characters. Most men don't want to actually be Thomas Magnum. It seems great when you're looking at the Ferraris and you're looking at the beautiful women and you're looking at that house, But the reality is Thomas Magnum is getting shot at a lot, And in a real world, Thomas Magnum, he's not going to last more than 2 or 3 probably episodes. That's a dangerous life. The guy doesn't really want to live that, but there's a fantasy involved to it. But also in these characters, they give you virtues to aim for. And now you're not going to necessarily hit these virtues because, again, These characters live in a fantasy world, but those virtues of emotional connection, of thinking things through, solving problems, of courage in the face of evil. These are all things for men to aim for. We may fall short of these things, but if you're not aiming for something higher, you're going to end up very low indeed. And these aren't just things for men to aim for, it's for women too. We all have that masculine feminine dichotomy in us. These kind of characters help women to tap in to that masculine side and unleash those virtues and become a more full person. Just as for the man, seeing women or children in distress, seeing evil to be sort of combated, helps us to unlock that more nurturing side, so we become more full human beings. A lot of people look at these shows as just, it's just stupid men and they're just, No, man, these are important lessons for men and women to learn. They learn from these kinds of heroes just as much as they learn from the heroes in The Lord of the Rings, or from Superman, or Spider-Man, or name the fairy tale, name the myth. Gives you something higher to shoot for. That's why detective shows are important, and I'd love to see more of them out there. And again, I'd love to see newer ones out there that take this formula and do something really fun with it. But now, of course, a lot of people probably say these days, hey man, this is not what modern audiences want. This is not what they want. Modern audiences? Or modern conglomerates? Because I've just read an article, and I think it was WDW Pro had reported on this, about Netflix pitching a series to potential audience members. And they actually pitched two series. One of them was a real series they were actually trying to develop. One of them was not. The one that was not was based heavily on Starsky and Hutch. You had two, buddies, two guys, one sort of Ivy League, one more sort of country style, and they're fighting crime in Las Vegas, and they got a muscle car, and you have fist fights, and you have car chases and all that. And that was the series that audiences wanted to see. They're fun and they're entertaining. But there are more profound things that we get from these kind of fantasy shows. You don't get them from police procedurals. That's the grim, gritty, dark side. And that's important too. It's important to know the real world that you live in. But that fantasy world gives you something to aspire to. So keep that in mind. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get some more shows like that out there. Not the remakes. Let's get something original. Create a detective. Give him an interesting past. Maybe it's ex-military. Maybe, who knows? Give him a cool car. Hey, if you want it to be an electric vehicle, a Tesla, awesome. There should right now be a TV detective in a souped up, cool Tesla. And then put him in a cool location, something neat, something interesting. Maybe it's like the mean streets of St. Louis. Maybe it's in LA, maybe it's in New York. Maybe we come back to Vegas or Hawaii. Who knows? And then write some good mysteries, develop those characters. You're going to have a hit on your hands. So hey, that's what I got today in Dad's Den, a celebration of detective shows and of the elements that make a good detective show. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate if you'd hit that like button. If you enjoy the videos I'm making, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. It would really help me out here. And until next time, have an awesome day. be kind to one another. And I'll see you next time in Dad's Den of Pop Culture.